Next, Mr. Chameleon and the Suspicious Father murder case. Tonight we again present the famous Mr. Chameleon of Central Police Headquarters in his famous cases of crime and murder. Brought to you by the makers of genuine Bayer aspirin. Mr. Chameleon, as you know, is the famous and dreaded detective who frequently uses a disguise to track down a killer. A disguise which at all times is recognized by the audience. Tonight we give you Mr. Chameleon in the Suspicious Father murder case. In the austere inner office of the successful firm of Metcalf and Bellows, three apprehensive young people sit waiting for old Robert Metcalf. They are his children, Mabel, Kate, and Andy, the rather unhappy children of Robert's old age. And Mabel, the oldest, exclaims,
"Why do you suppose he sent for us? What's he up to now?"
Mabel, dear, that's no way to speak of Father.
She's right, Kate. What is this important family council? He's up to something, all right. Oh, but here he is now, with Charles Bellows, his partner. That does mean it's important.
Morning, children. Mabel, Kate, Andy.
Good morning, Mr.
Morning,
Bellows.
Mr. Bellows.
Morning, Father.
Good morning, Father.
Morning. So you all managed to get up and get down here. I'm amazed.
Now, Father.
Now be quiet, Kate, till I finish speaking. I sent for you all to let you know that I've discovered your plot to kill me.
Our plot to kill you.
What?
Are you out of your mind, Father?
He's joking. He must be joking.
I'm neither crazy nor joking. I happen to know that the three of you want to kill me.
Mr. Bellows, he is joking, isn't he?
I'm afraid not, Kate.
But surely
Kate, I told you to be quiet.
Yes, Father.
I'm an old man. I was past middle age when you were born. You never loved me. You've been interested only in my money. Since I've gone on living past my allotted span, I'm sure you're sick and tired of waiting for that money.
So we've tried to kill you, Father.
Yes, Andy, you have. Those violent stomach upsets that I've had lately, they were caused by poison. Oh, stop laughing, you vultures, you murderers.
I'm not laughing, Father. Kate and Andy can treat it like a joke, but I don't think you're funny. I think you're horrible. If you hate your children so much you believe they want to kill you, then maybe it would be a good idea if someone did.
Well, at least you're honest, Mabel. Now I want you to hear what'll happen to my money. Fellas, tell them about the new will I'm having drawn up today.
Yes, Robert. Children, I feel badly about this. I tried to talk some sense into your father.
Mr. Bellows, has Father cut us off entirely?
Kate, he's left you each $500. The rest of his fortune, and it's quite a fortune, as you know, goes to the Windsor Shelter for Homeless Dogs and Cats.
What?
So it won't do you any good to kill me, you understand? Why commit murder if you get nothing out of it?
But, Father,
Tomorrow I'll sign that will, and then I'll be safe from my dear children. It's my way of assuring myself of a peaceful old age.
But that evening at Central Headquarters, as Mr. Chameleon, the great detective, is clearing off his desk, the door opens to admit the Commissioner of Police, who says,
"Getting ready to call it a day, Chameleon?"
I was, Commissioner, but I take it there's a change in my plans. What's happened?
Robert Metcalf was just shot to death.
Robert Metcalf, the millionaire who's considered such an eccentric?
Yeah, that's the one, Chameleon. He was sitting in his garden when someone fired at him. He died instantly less than half an hour ago. You better get up there immediately and take Dave Arnold with you. This looks to me like a sensational case. Right up your alley.
And so, a little later, in the Metcalf garden, we find Mr. Chameleon bending over the crumpled body of old Robert Metcalf. And he is saying to Mabel Metcalf, who is standing next to him,
I understand that you were with your father at the time he was shot, Miss Mabel.
I was sitting next to him, Mr. Chameleon, here on this bench. Suddenly, a shot rang out. It seemed to come from Over there.
From those bushes next to the house. Well, whoever fired it, Miss Mabel, was a crack shot. And from the looks of the bullet, I'd say it was a target gun.
A target gun?
Mm-hmm. Who in this family does target practice? Who's a crack shot? Well, answer me, please.
We all are, Mr. Chameleon. Andy, Kate, and myself, we've all won medals, but we certainly didn't kill Father. He was a difficult man. But in our way, we were fond of him, even though we quarreled.
What'd you quarrel about?
What? Nothing.
Miss Mabel, let me remind you that your father has been murdered, and I represent the law. There are many people that I can question. Your father's partner, Charles Bellows, for instance. So it'll be better if you tell me the truth.
Father made out a new will, cutting us off, leaving all of his money to a home for dogs and cats.
What? Was your father so fond of animals? Didn't I read recently that he hauled someone to court because they had a barking dog?
Yes, he did.
Well, then why should he leave his money to a home for stray animals instead of to his children?
I don't know, Mr. Chameleon. He must have been mad.
When did he sign this will?
He was going to sign it tomorrow.
So the old will is still in effect? You still get his fortune?
Yes. That really makes it look bad for us, doesn't it?
Miss Mabel, I recently read about you in the papers, too. You were named in a divorce suit. Mrs. Henry Ardsley named you. You were supposed to marry Ardsley as soon as he was free.
Well?
Forgive me, but Ardsley is a known fortune hunter.
In other words, he wouldn't marry me if I didn't have a cent.
You said that, not I. But that is your brother Andy and your sister Kate watching us, isn't it? Will you come over here, please?
I suppose Mabel has been telling you plenty about me, Mr. Chameleon.
Your father was murdered, Mr. Metcalf. I expect you all to help me.
And she's been helpful, I'll bet. I suppose she told you I needed money.
Andy.
I suppose she told you I lost a lot on the stock exchange, and I signed my father's name to a couple of checks.
No, I didn't, Andy, you fool.
I don't believe you, Mabel. Well, let me tell you, Mr. Chameleon, it was Mabel who said my father would be better off dead. It's Mabel who needs money in order to get married.
Thank you for the information, Mr. Metcalf. I might add that your sister said nothing about your losses. I would say both of you were suffering from a bad case of suspicion.
Mr. Chameleon, if they are, you really can't blame them. My father himself was so suspicious of everyone.
Incidentally, Miss Kate, where were you and your brother at the time that your father was shot?
I was in the library, and so was Kate.
And that is the library window there, isn't it? And both of you are crack shots.
So Mabel did tell you that about us.
She probably had to, Andy. The chances are she even had to tell Mr. Chameleon that I'm the best shot of all.
No, I didn't, Kate, I didn't.
Did she, Mr. Chameleon?
Don't you believe your sister, Miss Kate? Don't any of you believe each other? If you don't, how do you expect me to believe any of you? You all claim that you had nothing to do with your father's death. Yet every single one of you had a reason for murdering him.
What reason?
Money, Miss Kate, money. If your father had signed that second fantastic will, all of you, without exception, would have been practically penniless. Incidentally, you say that he was suspicious of everyone. Did that include you, his children?
Yes, it did.
Well, why should he be suspicious of his children, Miss Kate?
I don't know. That is...
He was just naturally suspicious.
Andy, I'm asking your sister. What did you start to say, Miss Kate?
Nothing. Andy's right. He was naturally suspicious.
That is not what you started to say, Miss Kate. You started to tell me something else. But Detective Sergeant Dave Arnold is beckoning to me from the house. I'm going in now, but I shall be back. And I shall want the truth. I want to know why your father was suspicious of you, his children. What is it, Dave? Did you find the murder weapon?
No, not a sign of it, Mr. Chameleon. But old Robert Metcalf's partner, Charles Bellows, is in the library.
Good. Just the man I want to see. Dave, search the garden for the gun and keep an eye on Metcalf's children.
Yes, Mr. Chameleon. If you ask me, they need it.
Mr. Bellows?
Yes?
I am Chameleon of Central Police Headquarters.
Oh, Mr. Chameleon, this is an honor. I'm glad you're in charge of the case. Though needless to say, my partner's death was a dreadful shock. How are the children bearing up?
The children, Mr. Bellows, are heirs to a fortune. If their father had died one day later, they would have been penniless.
So you heard about that incredible will. Mr. Chameleon, I did everything I could to prevent him making it.
Why did he make it? The children think that he was mad.
I'd say the same thing if I didn't know him so well. But he was a remarkable man, Mr. Chameleon. A genius in business.
Who was suspicious of his children. Well, that is pretty horrible, Mr. Bellows. Especially if he thought they might even kill for the money.
He did. As you say, it was a horrible situation.
Mr. Bellows, what made him think his children wanted to kill him?
I can't answer that. It seems so fantastic because, believe me, in many ways he was a brilliant man. A great believer in the power of suggestion school of thought.
The what?
The power of suggestion, Mr. Chameleon. If you suggest something to a person enough times, he'll believe it and act on it.
Oh, yes, I've heard of that school of thought.
Robert Metcalf believed it to be a great force for good. So do I, in fact.
Oh, that's interesting. Very interesting. Did either of you know a man named Svengoski, the great exponent and teacher of the power of suggestion?
Yes, both of us knew him, Mr. Chameleon.
You know him well?
Robert did. He saw him once or twice a week. He idolized Svengoski.
But he hated his own children. Did the children know about their father's belief in the power of suggestion school of thought?
I honestly can't say.
Well, Svengoski should know. Maybe he even knows why old Robert Metcalf thought his own children wanted to murder him. Doesn't he?
That's something I can't answer either, Mr. Chameleon.
Well, perhaps Svengoski can. And I intend to find out. I'm going to see the great Svengoski immediately, Mr. Bellows.
And so, a little later, we find Mr. Chameleon examining with interest the dimly lit, mysterious studio which belongs to Svengoski, self-styled master of the power of suggestion. And he turns to face the powerful, striking-looking man who has just entered the studio.
Mr. Svengoski?
Yes?
I am Chameleon of Central Police Headquarters. I'm here to investigate the murder of Robert Metcalf.
Murdered? Oh, no. The poor old man, I'm deeply shocked to hear it, Mr. Chameleon.
Well, then I'm sure that you'll help me.
In any way I can. I didn't know Robert Metcalf well, but he was, well, one of my followers.
Yes, I heard that he believed in the power of suggestion, being able to make people behave the way you want them to by suggesting something to them over and over. Tell me, why was he so suspicious of his children?
Suspicious? In what way?
What made him think they wanted to kill him?
I can't imagine a man thinking that of his own children.
Then he never told you, Mr. Svengoski?
Never, Mr. Chameleon. Oh, he mentioned his children. He was disturbed about them. He said Mabel, the eldest, was extremely unattractive, that she wanted to get married and would have to buy a husband. He also told me his son, Andy, had a weakness for gambling.
But he never told you that he expected them to murder him.
Mr. Chameleon, I am the head of a school of thought he believed in, but I was never a close friend. He wouldn't say that to me.
How do you explain the will?
Will?
Yes.
What will?
Don't you know about Robert Metcalf's will?
How could I possibly know about his will? I'm not psychic, Mr. Chameleon. I simply believe in thought control.
Robert Metcalf made a new will which was not signed before his murder, leaving his fortune to a home for dogs and cats. Now, how can you explain his cutting out his own children that way?
Mr. Chameleon, you really overestimate my powers. The vagaries of the human heart I don't pretend to understand, and now I wonder...
Are you expecting someone, Mr. Svengoski? You seem rather nervous, but I'm leaving anyway.
Oh, there's no hurry, Mr. Chameleon. I'll see you to the door.
When did you last see the murdered man, Mr. Svengoski?
About a week ago.
Oh? You ever met the children?
Not that I recall, Mr. Chameleon.
Well, you are nervous, Mr. Svengoski. You're in a hurry.
No.
Well, that is your doorbell, Mr. Svengoski. Aren't you going to open the door?
Of course.
Why, it's Miss Kate. Kate Metcalf. What are you doing here? Mr. Svengoski, you said you didn't know Metcalf's children.
I don't.
He doesn't, Mr. Chameleon. That is...
If she's come here before, she's never seen me. She's seen my staff, other members of my power of suggestion school.
Really? Mr. Svengoski, you are lying. Both of you. Miss Kate, I'm taking you to Central Police Headquarters for questioning.
Mr. Chameleon and the suspicious father murder case continues in just a moment. Next time you want relief from an ordinary headache, neuritic, or neuralgic pain, remember that one thing you can take with complete confidence is genuine Bayer aspirin. You can take it confident of amazingly fast relief. For Bayer aspirin is actually ready to go to work in 2 seconds. And you can take it confident of really dependable relief, for no other pain reliever can match its record of use by millions of normal people without ill effect. Don't ever forget this record. It's important, because it means you can take Bayer aspirin sure in the knowledge that it will bring you the gentle relief that's important to your health. So don't experiment with drugs that have not been proved by years of successful use. For the two most important kinds of relief, fast relief and dependable relief, do as millions do, be sure with Bayer aspirin. And when you buy, ask for it by its full name, Bayer aspirin, not just for aspirin alone. Get the 100-tablet bottle and you get Bayer aspirin tablets for less than a penny apiece. And now back to Mr. Chameleon and the suspicious father murder case. It is a little later at Central Police Headquarters, and we find Mr. Chameleon in his office. And with him is Kate Metcalf, to whom he is saying,
I want the truth, Miss Kate. You knew Sven Goski. You knew him extremely well.
No, Mr. Chameleon, I did not know him personally.
Then why did you go to his studio tonight? Because you were both involved in your father's death?
No, I simply knew some of his followers.
Then you believed in the power of suggestion, didn't you? You were a member of that school of thought. Oh, probably your sister Mabel. I had Detective Arnold send for her. Come in.
Mr. Chameleon, why, Kate, are you here too?
Indeed she is, Miss Mabel. Things look bad for you and your brother Andy.
What do you mean?
First tell me, Miss Mabel, was Kate a member of the Svengoski Power of Suggestion group?
Yes, she was. In fact, she was using it on our brother Andy.
Mabel means I was using it to stop his gambling.
I do not, Kate. For all I know, you were using it on Andy to suggest to him, to persuade him to murder Father.
Mabel, how can you say that?
She's saying it, Miss Kate, because she's afraid for herself.
I have nothing to be afraid of, Mr. Chameleon.
You all have plenty to be afraid of. And you, Miss Kate, I'm convinced that you knew Svengoski well. Well, that's all for now. You may leave by this door.
Mr. Chameleon.
Yes, Miss Kate.
Nothing. But you can't prove anything against any of us. Come along, Mabel. Mabel.
What is it, Kate?
You didn't mean what you said just now. That I was using the power of suggestion to persuade Andy to murder Father.
Was it true?
Mabel, stop talking that way. You're my sister and Andy is my brother.
And we all stand to share equally in Father's estate.
What do you mean by that? And what's Andy doing here?
Andy?
Yes, Andy. He's waiting there at the end of the corridor. I suppose he wondered what I'd have to say to Mr. Chameleon. Well, tell him. Right now I'm fed up with both of you.
Mabel.
Yes, Andy. Seeing you here at Mr. Chameleon's office upset Kate. She thought you were spying on her.
What did she have to say to Chameleon?
I think dear little Kate, who is all sweetness and light, is doing her best to pin Father's murder on us.
I might have known it. I told you she was dangerous, Mabel.
I tried to convince Mr. Chameleon that she was using the power of suggestion to persuade you to murder Father.
Are you crazy? What are you trying to do, get me into trouble?
Andy.
Because if you are, you watch your step. I can play that game, too.
Maybe both of us, Andy, should watch our steps. After all, it's Mr. Chameleon we really have to fear. And right this minute, he may be planning something.
But even as Mabel speaks, Mr. Chameleon in his office is pacing restlessly up and down, and the expression on his face is so disturbed that Dave Arnold says to him,
How's it going, Mr. Chameleon? Not so good, huh?
No, Dave, there's no question in my mind but that the power of suggestion was diabolically used to murder old Robert Metcalf.
Yeah, but who used it, Mr. Chameleon?
Yes, that's the question. I've no evidence against anyone. Only one thing to do, to return to Svengoski's studio. I shall use a disguise to try to break him down, try to get some piece of evidence that'll put the finger on the murderer.
What sort of disguise?
I'm going to fight fire with fire, Dave. I'm going there disguised as Misha Lubov, another exponent of the power of suggestion. A gentleman who claims to know even more about the power of suggestion than Svengoski does.
And so, the following day, we find Mr. Chameleon revisiting the strange studio of the great Sven Goski, self-styled master of the power of suggestion. And Mr. Chameleon, in his disguise of Misha Lubov, is speaking now to Sven Goski in the voice of his disguise.
Mr. Sven Goski, I am Misha Lubov. You have heard of me, of course.
I'm afraid not, Mr. Lubov. You've never been here before.
No, but I am a great admirer of the great Sven Goski, and I practice the power of suggestion, though I go one step further than you do, as you know.
How should I know? I've never heard of you, Mr. Lubov. I haven't the slightest idea what you mean.
I mean, Mr. Sven Goski, that I have the ability to project my spirit into another person and make them do what I want, control all their actions.
Are you serious, or is this some sort of a trick?
A trick? There is no trick in the power of suggestion. And the police take me so seriously that they sent for me this morning.
The police?
Yes.
But why should the police be interested in you?
Because one of your followers, a Robert Metcalf, was murdered. They suspect who did this, and they want me to work on him.
You mean they want you to suggest mentally to the murderer that he confess?
Exactly, Mr. Svengovsky. I knew that you would be interested because you are the master. Well, something is the matter. You keep glancing over your shoulder all the time.
I'm doing nothing of the sort, Mr. Lubov.
But of course you are. You have done it 2 or 3 times.
I didn't. You imagined it.
I am very sorry.
So am I. I didn't mean to shout. Whom do the police suspect?
They have not told me this yet. They are also looking for the murder weapon. What are you laughing at?
I'm laughing because the whole thing is absurd. It's crazy that the police should use the power of suggestion to help solve a murder case.
Mr. Svengovsky, you know that the power of suggestion always works. You can make it work. I can make it work.
It won't work this time.
I do not agree. In fact, I intend to work with the police just to prove, Mr. Svengovsky, that the power of suggestion can help catch the murderer who killed Robert Metcalf.
But sometime later, when once again Mr. Chameleon visits the eerie studio of Sven Goski, he does so as himself, and with Detective Dave Arnold. And he says to Dave as they mount the front steps,
Here we go, Dave. If I'm right, and I think I am, we'll at least produce enough evidence to start things rolling.
And I have that document that Robert Metcalf signed.
That should be a help, too. Well, Mr. Bellows.
Hello, Chameleon. I saw you coming up the steps, so I thought I'd let you in. We're all here, as you requested, and the 3 Metcalf children, too.
Good. I'm particularly glad that you could come, Mr. Bellows. As Robert Metcalf's partner, I felt that you should be present. Good afternoon, everyone. Mr. Svengovsky.
What's this all about, Mr. Chameleon? What's this meeting for?
Yes, what's the big idea? Why make us come here?
Because, Mr. Svengovsky and Andy, this particular room, the headquarters of the school of thought which practices the power of suggestion, this room was where Robert Metcalf's murder was first planned.
That's a lie.
No, Mr. Svengovsky. The murder weapon is probably hidden in that panel behind your desk. Dave, try to open the panel.
No, wait.
Go ahead, Dave.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Chameleon, you've been listening to a cheap fellow named Misha Lubov.
I was Misha Lubov, Mr. Svengovsky.
What?
And when I talked to you this afternoon about Robert Metcalf's murder, you kept glancing nervously at that particular panel.
No.
The panel's hollow, Mr. Chameleon. Yes, and here's a spring. It's sliding back.
And here is the gun, Mr. Svengovsky. The gun that killed Robert Metcalf.
It's not mine, Mr. Chameleon. I hid it for someone.
For whom? For Miss Kate, the murdered man's daughter? Miss Kate, did you use the power of suggestion to persuade your brother Andy to kill your father?
No.
No, I never murdered my father. Mr. Bellows, you don't believe that I shot my father?
I don't know what to think, Andy. This is all so terrible. Kate, was it you?
No, Mr. Bellows, no.
But everything points to you, Kate, doesn't it, Mr. Chameleon?
Yes, Mr. Bellows. Everything points to the children. That is the way the power of suggestion was used. It was suggested to Robert Metcalf that his children wanted to kill him. It was suggested to him over and over until he believed it. So when he was murdered, everything pointed to the children as the murderers.
Well, I didn't kill him.
No, Miss Mabel. Nor did Andy nor your sister Kate. You children stood to gain a fortune, but somebody else stood to gain just as much by your father's murder.
What do you mean, Mr. Chameleon?
Detective Dave Arnold has a document here, Mr. Bellows. A document that he found in Robert Metcalf's safety deposit vault.
Mr. Chameleon.
An agreement between Robert Metcalf and yourself, Mr. Bellows, that if one of you died, the other got control of the business. A tremendous business.
Give me that agreement. Give it to me.
No, Mr. Bellows. It was you who turned Metcalf against his children. So he drew up that will, and then he was murdered. So that the children, in the eyes of the world, had the motive. It was a dirty scheme, and you carried it off beautifully.
This is an outrage, Chameleon.
You have been meeting Svengowski secretly. We've had you shadowed. Just this noon, you met him when he was worried about Lubov. And here is the murder gun found in Svengowski's place. You can't get around that.
But the gun is Svengowski's. He did the actual shooting.
That's a lie, Bellows, a filthy lie. I'll swear in the witness stand that you did the shooting and paid me to hide the gun, yes. And promised me $5,000 if I'd help you poison old Metcalf's mind.
Hey, look out. Bellows has the gun. Drop it, Bellows, or I'll have to shoot.
Will you try to kill me, Chameleon?
No, Bellows. Just stop you from killing Svengowski. That did it. That's as good as a signed confession. You may have practiced the power of suggestion, Bellows, but apparently you never learned the practice of self-discipline.
And with these words, Mr. Chameleon concludes tonight's murder case. When you have a social or business engagement, don't let an ordinary headache upset it. Remember, Bayer aspirin will bring you relief and quickly. Millions know how fast Bayer aspirin works. And if you've never tried it, a simple test will show you how quickly a Bayer aspirin tablet is ready to go to work. This test reveals what happens in your stomach when you take Bayer aspirin. All you do is drop the tablet in a glass of water and time its disintegrating speed. When it starts to disintegrate, it's ready to go to work. And as you'll see, Bayer aspirin tablets start disintegrating almost instantly. They bring amazingly fast relief because they're actually ready to go to work in 2 seconds. When you buy, ask for genuine Bayer aspirin, not just for aspirin alone. Get the 100-tablet bottle and you get Bayer aspirin tablets for less than a penny apiece. Listen next Wednesday night at this same time for Mr. Chameleon, the man of many faces, in The Murder Clue of the Rope Ladder. The part of Mr. Chameleon is played by Carl Swenson, with dialogue by Marie Baumer from the original story by Frank and Ann Hummert. Music directed by Victor Arden. Your announcer is Howard Claney.
To millions, tooth decay means suffering, worry, expense. But now, thanks to a remarkable scientific discovery, you can actually cut down tooth decay simply by using new ammoniated Dr. Lyon's tooth powder. Based on a formula developed by University of Illinois scientists, it actually destroys bacteria Lactobacillus acidophilus, which cause tooth decay. As a result, dentists by the thousands recommend this type dentifrice. So to cut down tooth decay, to have sounder, healthier, handsomer teeth, use ammoniated Dr. Lyon's tooth powder. Both regular Dr. Lyon's tooth powder and new ammoniated Dr. Lyon's are at all drug and toilet goods counters.
Listen for Mr. Chameleon in The Murder Clue of the Rope Ladder next Wednesday night at this time. This is CBS, the Columbia Broadcasting System.